that it brings us to campus life, though. Now, you were telling me something about, now, once again, you're on a military base. I want people to understand that where you're doing ministry is with military students, children of military personnel that are moved around every so many years. And so these students are different than the average student, unless they're a student of a corporation or something to where the parents move with corporations. But tell us about those students and what that ministry looks like. And you said Campus Life, Youth for Christ USA, has done something with that to make it more of a unit worldwide. So go into detail about that a little bit.
Okay, well, I'll start off with the big picture, if I can, with Youth for Christ as a whole. So before this summer, I guess, I don't remember when the exact official day was, but every military site, Campus Life military site, used to just be an affiliate. And so essentially what that means is they would all fall under one supervisor, but they would kind of be on their own as far as programming and things like that, and finances, fundraising, things like that. What they decided to do was take all the military worldwide and put us all underneath the military chapter, which is just going to help out all the sites, to include new sites, because I tell you what, it seems like almost every couple months, maybe we have somebody that's interested in either being new staff at a new location, or a chaplain who's reaching out saying, hey, I heard about your Campus Life program. I'd love to talk to you guys about being on our base. And, with the chapter mindset and with the fundraising that way, that's going to help out the military as a whole as we continue to build out missionary fields at these different bases. But yeah, for the students, they are definitely an interesting group of people. And I say people very properly, because they go through a lot of life changes very quickly. And they have to learn maturity a lot faster than a lot of their peers do. They move bases. I might have a student here in Hawaii, maybe 2 years. That's a good average, because their parents aren't always right on the ball on finding the local program or the youth group or whatever, or even settling down on a church as a whole. At best, I get 3 years. I get a full 3 years with them. But even then, I only get 3 years with them, and then they move away. And so it's what can I do to, help them with that? And if I can share a story, we like to send off the students well, at least the best we can, whenever they move. And so the hard part with that is when you're the last one to leave of your youth group generation that you were with. And so how we do it is at the end of somebody's tour, when they're about to PCS, they'll come to their last club. I'll have them stand up in front, and of course, no kid wants to stand up in front, but they don't have to do anything but stand there and just listen. And I offer up to the kids who are sitting in the sanctuary to stand up and just share how the student had impacted their life. And what gets really hard is when you have a group of students, in this case, it was 3 girls, and they were the last ones of their generation to really leave. And so they didn't really have any good built relationships, because almost everybody in the youth group were new during the COVID time. I wouldn't say it got awkward, but it got awkward,
Right.
Yeah.
PCS, though, tell us what PCS is for us non-military.
So PCS is a permanent change of station, although I joke with the kids, it's never really permanent, because you're only there for another 3 years,
right, and
then you move somewhere else. But essentially, it's just the military telling you, your family, that the military member is going to move from point A to point B, whatever point B is, and you're going to be there for 3 years. Sometimes the military assigns them to Korea, and they go there for a year without their family, and then deployments and stuff like that as well. So that's kind of what PCS is all about.
These students that you're dealing with, they're handling things at an accelerated pace. Life is accelerated for them. They know it's going to keep changing. It's been changing probably since they were born. A lot of them were probably born while their parents were in the military. And so they're grown up in the system. So what are the negatives you see, and what are the positives you see in these students? As far as generally, I'm not trying to say there's a specific, there's always the oddball, guy by the name of Chris Voss will call it a black swan. Black swan is something they thought didn't exist, but in theory it's supposed to. And 100 years later, whatever, somebody finds a black swan. They went, oh no, there's a black swan. We thought there was, So the black swan, is that person that you don't see it coming. But so what is generally kind of a military student like, the good and the the difficulties in reaching them? What's the easy way to deal with them? What's easy about it, and what's hard about it?
Yeah, so I think I do want to share one student story again, because this kid, he likes to instigate but be kind-hearted about it, kind of. When he came from the mainland, he used to work at Chick-fil-A, and we don't have a Chick-fil-A here. But every time he comes to club, he wears his Chick-fil-A shirt, and gets under my skin. But
teasing you people.
Yeah. Now, there's supposedly one on the way, but we'll see if it ever actually gets here.
Right.
But, one thing to know about military kids, and I think maybe a lot of people have heard this term before, a lot of people call them military brats. And there are some kids that take that as like a badge of honor, and other kids that are like, don't call me a brat. I'm not a brat. Like, I'm a good kid. I follow the rules and I listen to my parents and all that kind of stuff. And so I think the good thing about, military kids are they're very resilient in being able to come to club for the first time and just start building friendships. We still have those shy kids that, take a while to warm up to others. But for the most part, they want connection. They want to get to know somebody else that's their same age. Maybe they go to the same school. Maybe they're all homeschooled and they need to find friends. And, club's a great way to do that. So as much as I don't want club to just be a hangout spot, I am well aware it's going to be a hangout spot for some kids because it's the only time they get to see their friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the hard part, with military students is one, they're really smart. So I got to be smarter. And every now and then it doesn't work, but that's okay. They're helping me learn too. And, again, they're students and they get to deal with, so in the military, we have a culture, and I'll give you an active duty experience. I can tease somebody who's my friend who's in the Army all day long and talk about Army and, Army this, Army that. And he can rag on me, Air Force this, Air Force that. But if somebody from the outside comes in, a civilian, I don't want to use that like derogatory, right? But that's what we call people not in the military, civilians.
Correct.
If a civilian, starts ragging on my Army buddy about being Army, we're all going to jump in and just like get on that civilian and be like, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the military students is, they kind of build this bond because they have this similarity of being military students, military kids. But, when they go to a location that either there's been some bad things in the past that's happened between the local culture and the military culture, they kind of get this mindset of, well, people on the outside of the fence don't like me because I'm a military kid, so I don't want to go off base ever. And, to be honest, you could spend 3 years, I think, at pretty much any military location and not go off base.
Wow.
Because almost every location has a BX, a base exchange. Think of it like a little Walmart or a little shopping center. You can get clothes, you can get shoes, you can get food, you can get Starbucks, all that. There's a post office on base. There's restaurants on base. Usually there's a Chili's. If it's an Air Force location, there's a Chili's there, or some other restaurant available. And dry cleaning, you don't have to go off base ever if you didn't want to. And especially here in Hawaii, here in Hawaii, again, you said it was paradise. And I think I can count on my hand how many times I've been to the beach for personal reasons, just to go have fun.
Exactly.
We, on Hickam, on the base, we have 2 beaches. And so you don't even have to go off base to go to the beach. You can go off base, or you can stay on base and go to the beach. You can go hang out in the water and swim. You can go surf because you can walk out to where there's some surf on all of that. And so literally you don't have to leave the base at all. And that's something that the students, when they're dealing with this cultural conflict, that they just like, you know what, I can just go to club and be safe and be happy and not go off base where I have to deal with all that cultural nonsense because I'm going to leave in 3 years. So why do I have to deal with it?
Right. Yeah. And those would be some obstacles. Probably it's possible, and I'm not sure that this is true across the board, but the average military kid may be a little sharper than the average student because just the type of person that would join the military, the type of person that would be traveling the world and staying in for long extended periods of time. So you are probably dealing with that different sort of person. The other thing is, and they're almost like a fraternity. They're like a fraternity sorority, possibly, and that, this is, we all of us students, we know what this is like. Those people out there don't, and they don't like us anyway. But here's what I did not do at the beginning. We got to do it right now. Tell me how people can get in touch with you. Tell me how they can send money to support you, because let me tell you what, guys, I was Youth for Christ for 6 years. I starved for the first 3. I had investments, but I could not touch the investments, and I was horrible at raising money. And that is across the board with most people in ministry. They're usually good at one or two things, ministering or raising funds. Very seldom are they good at both. And so Chase and I talked about it. Yeah, and some of them are. There's a few. I've known a couple. Chase, tell us how we can send money to you. Tell us how we can stay in touch with you.
Well, to stay in touch, I'm on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. And that's at ChazzyMac808, ChazzyMac808. I usually am on Instagram the most out of those 3. I mainly follow Twitter for Elon Musk updates and SpaceX.
There you go.
And then I'm also on Facebook. It's kind of hard, so get your pen ready. It's at YFCCLMILHI. So YFC Campus Life Military Hawaii. That's just the app for Facebook. And then also I have a website. It's YFC Campus Life Military HI, and that's like my daily or my monthly newsletter that I used to put out. We went to the chapter models, so the chapter is now handling newsletters. But on there in the About Us section is a little bit about me and my family, and also the pages, the links for going to donate. So, I really appreciate anybody coming on as ministry partners. As you know, they are very vital to the mission, especially with COVID right now. Even the chapel that I serve with, the base chapel, they're in a financial crunch because of COVID. And so now more than ever do we need more people to step in and remember, I should be giving my tithing every weekend. I should be, supporting missionaries that are out there doing the work.
Yeah, that's important. And it's important for me to have you say those things, because for those, if there are mostly youth workers listening, they get it. But also, we're the ones teaching about what God says about giving. And so it's good for us to give as well to each other. So right. Guys, give to Chase and his family. Don't think somebody else is going to do it. Our rule of thumb was 1 to 10%, no matter how many people you reach out to. So if we're reaching, 10,000 people, you might get $100, you might get $1,000. Or you might get 10 people, you might get 1,000 people that are giving. It is not that easy. And remember, this is warfare. So people are at war about their money. Should I give it? Should I hold on to it? Does Chase get it and Lisa, or does somebody else? And remember, he's raising a 13-year-old child, and some of you are going through the same thing, and he needs your encouragement. I know what that's like, and I know what it's like for a donor to come out of nowhere. And that a guy I thought didn't even like me, and the next 3 years of my salary was paid for because of this guy my last 3 years at Campus Life. But that doesn't happen to everybody. Different things happen. So give us that one more time. What's that place that we can go to and we can see the links to send you money? That one
YFC.
There you go.
YFC Campus Life Military HI at .org.
Okay, and so here's the deal. Campus Life, we are missionaries, Youth for Christ, Young Life, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We don't always see, we call them parachurch, and that kind of takes the sting out of it. No, they're actually missionaries. They're actually home missionaries. In fact, student ministers and campus ministers like you are our last defense before adulthood. And statistically, we know for years the stats keep changing and become harder and harder. And that is, if we don't reach students, when I entered in student ministry, by the time they're 18, the chances were so slim once they left high school that they come to know Christ ever. And so we are that last force that God uses, and that's the importance of student ministry. And so we don't need to tell everybody that knows that. The rest of you, give me a call, give Chase a call, and we'll let you know again. So so go on. We're talking about the students, and if you remember where we left off, go from there. I'm almost forgetting where we were exactly. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Then we're going to edit that. We're going to, of course we remember. We're going to put that in there. But
right.
Okay, so we got the students there. They're changing every 3 years. They're coming in pretty savvy right off the bat. The one thing that I heard you say was that they make friends quickly. Am I right?
They do.
So talk about that again a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So, when a new student shows up to club, I kind of know like who my go-to other students are that have been there for a minute, to know like which ones are more outgoing and which ones are more, friendly to just go and hang out with. And so I'll connect the new students with them. Or I'll connect them with the student that they know from school, or at least they've seen maybe in the hallway and didn't know who they were, and now they do because they go to the same youth group together. And yeah, they're very quick to make a connection with somebody else, because in the military lifestyle, you got 3 years, and I think there's a pressure that they feel if they don't make a friend quickly, then they're going to kind of miss the bus and not make any friends at all. And of course, nobody wants to be, in that feeling of loneliness or whatever. So I kind of think that's where them wanting to build connections quickly occurs, because they know that if they're going to have any kind of meaningful friendship, relationship, conversation with somebody else, they only got 3 years to do it. And, to be honest, on the flip side of that, on the bright side, right, if there's somebody you just can't stand, just wait a couple years.
That's right. That's right. But we know that lifelong friendships are made in middle school and in high school and in college. Those adolescent years, there's certain things that happen that especially military kids, people that I'm very close to right now, they're married to each other. Both were military kids. And so they both know what that lifestyle was like. They both still have some of those friends from the places they would go into high school as they were in the military with their parents and things like that. And 40 years later, 30 years later, they're still visiting, each other, coming from across the country to see each other and that sort of thing. Now talk about student ministry.
If I can give one more story, because
absolutely,
as you know, as former YFC, we're all about our stories. Mm-hmm. We had a middle school small group that was about 20 girls at one point. So a small group, no more at that point, right?
Right.
But there is a group of, I think, 4 girls who had really felt a passion and a connection enough with each other to write a worship song. And in fact, I had them. That's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that the Lord blessed me over the years to build up the studio, because I all had them in the studio to record together. They recorded their keyboard, the guitar, and all that kind of stuff, the vocals. And then I was able to, master it together and put it as a song, and then send it to them via email. And now they have that memory for the rest of their life.
Oh, yeah.
They might not still connect with one another, but that's a memory they're going to be able to take with them for the rest of their life.
They will absolutely, especially girls more than guys. They will will hang on to that as like a real memory of relationship. And I tell middle school boys to their face, I'd say, girls, you understand relationships, right? And they'd all shake their head yes. And I'll say, and by the way, everything I'm saying to you girls, the guys are sitting here and they're going, they don't have a clue what we're talking about right now in front of them. And I say, guys, what do you know about relationships? What? Oh, yeah. And so girls, they carry it very deeply, very early in life.
I was like going back to the Louis Giglio, the boxes and the spaghetti. Laugh your way to a better marriage, I think, is the video he did. So
Giglio, he's the best, man. He's awesome. Done some incredible work and still is. You were talking about connecting your students on base with the students in the community, because the idea, and we see it in media, in movies, sitcoms, whatever, that if you're in Hawaii, that haoles, that's what people that are not native are called, right? Haoles, is that
right?
Is that right? And that's the image, is that no outsiders allowed, no outsiders wanted. Tell me what your take is on that and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I know that by and large, that's a false culture, a false mindset that we have from the local population. There is a small group who definitely don't like any outsiders, and that's not just for what we would call mainlanders, people from the 48 states, 49 states.
Right.
But as mainlanders, we come to the island and we kind of party it up, in some people's mind, destroy it, and then leave. And we just we had fun in Hawaii, now let's go home. But, there's people that live on the land. There's crops here. There's farmland here. It's a very delicate ecosystem. I think a lot of the struggle and where that all has come in, and you see it a lot in the movies, is typically a military guy at the bar getting drunk, gets into a fight with a local guy because he's disrespecting the land, or he's disrespected that person, or whatever the case might be. Mm-hmm. I know that not to be true. I don't have a lot of local friends right now, but again, I just got out of the military, and so I'm starting to build my relationships with others who have been living here all their life, or have some kind of local connection. Right. And so I'm myself learning all this kind of stuff. But what I do know is that for a majority, we are welcome here because Hawaii is all about this mindset of aloha. And, everybody comes to Hawaii, you always hear aloha. Like, you hear it on the airplane when you get on the plane. You hear it on the airplane when you get off the plane. You hear it at the next tourist stop when you go and there's a big party or luau, and it's like, aloha. Mm-hmm. And that's all you ever hear. When you go to a good luau, and there's some good ones and some good ones at entertainment, but not so much on the history side. But aloha is much more about love for one another. And to put it to a Christian context, we would call aloha like the phileo love, the brotherly love that we have for one another. Hawaii, by and large, has that mindset of let's just love one another as human beings, as people. And so what I want to do, getting to the other part of your question, is eventually, as I start to build my networks with local youth pastors, is to go to the beach with our military youth group, and then a local church youth group who has mainly local kids in it. Because, and this is one thing I don't think I mentioned quite earlier, a lot of these kids, they just don't know. And so when you get out into the local community, and they run into some of these, local Hawaiians, especially some of the kids who want to have that Hawaii first mentality. Yeah. And they'll start bullying and, ragging on the military kid. But I know that that's not the general culture, and I know that that's not a Hawaii aloha. Mm-hmm. And so I want to have the military kids experience Hawaii, not only because it's beautiful here and it's paradise, but because aloha is the mindset that most people have. And we can go give aloha for them as well as they're going to give it back to us as well.
It's a good example to local student ministries anyway. That may happen there in the military, but I think it happens probably among the multiple student ministries, that they don't like to intermingle themselves because there's this perception of these are my students, those are your students, leave my students alone. And especially if there's a larger student ministry, then what we found that the more we tell students stuff like that or whatever, they'd sense that they would run to some other student ministry anyway, because they were not about that. They wanted to know, I want to be welcome wherever I go. I want to go where I want to go. And so we would encourage students, hey, if you go to our student ministry, bring your friends. And then if they have another student ministry they go to, go there, go there too. We want you to be a part of this. This is your church. We want you to be a part of that. If not, you're under no obligation. And the more you tell them there's no obligation for them to have to be there, the more they want to be there. And we all feel stings at times when students go to one place or the other. But in the military thing, it's just very distinctive because you're put in a box by the outsiders. They're military. You're put in a box by yourself. We're military, and so it's a little more clear cut.
So one of the reasons why I'm so thankful that God provided this house the way that he did is because I do live in base housing, but I'm not on the base proper. I don't have to show my ID card to get to my house.
Wow.
For most of the military kids, they live on base. So if they make any local friends outside the base, they have to go see them because they can't come see them.
They can't come into the base. They can go off base.
Right. And so, as I start to build local connections, I can invite a youth pastor over to my house and not worry about having to get him a pass to come on base or go off base to pick him up and bring him on base. Even though I love bringing people on base, like give them tours and like show them the base because they've never been on a military base, even to know like, oh, wow, this is a lot different than what it looks like out in the regular community.
Right.
We have airplanes on static display on a base. Like,
right.
You're not going to see that in downtown Honolulu,
Right. No, that's cool. And so you're off base, but it's still military housing, but it's a little more. There's a military housing with freedom for people to come and go as they please. So that's good. That's good. So you guys, that's what you're talking about. That God provided you an incredible place for ministry as well as for your family to live. Let's talk about